and I'm brand new to both crypto and developing for blockchain. I've been studying web development for the last year, so pretty new into the industry, but here to soak up whatever knowledge y'all have and just kind of here to learn and see what's going on. Yeah.
Welcome, Chess. Okay, before we start, I would love to ask everybody to actually turn off their microphone if you're not speaking, so we don't actually disturb the speakers for today. And I'm gonna unmute one more person and then we can start. So yeah, don't forget to turn off your microphone, guys. And then we're gonna reserve the Q&A towards the end. We have 15 minutes slot for it. And I'm gonna share the presentation. We made a beautiful one for you guys. One sec. Give me a moment. Okay. Can you guys see the screen? Perfect. Okay, I'm also your presenter today, along with Marvin and Kiki. Disclaimer, I'm part of Ryder. Okay, we just finished the introduction with you guys. So for today, we're gonna have an introduction, which is done, and then you're gonna know more about Ryder, what's the story behind it, and after that, you're gonna know what's the latest development when it comes to the engineering side, like Ryder protocol, and then also for product development, then growth, and then the maker steps afterwards. And let's start with the origin story. So I would love to bring Marvin in this session. So Marvin, could you tell us a little bit like how did Ryder start? What's the problem behind it? What was the problem that you discovered?
Right. So this was back then when I entered the Stacks community. That was a couple of years ago. But this doesn't apply just to Stacks, but also different ecosystems where we have this amazing model where Stacks is all about owning your own data and reclaiming the internet, right? So there's a great mechanism where you use what they call a decentralized identity to sign into a decentralized application. And then you control where that application stores your data and whether that application still has access to it. So, you could at any point revoke, or by simply logging out, the application is going to lose access, right? But a thing that I ran into specifically was like, well, if I want to use this on a day-to-day basis, it's very cumbersome to really get this done because it's quite common that you have multiple devices that you use to sign into the same accounts, right? If we say, let's take Gmail, for example, right? You have a Gmail account, you sign into your Gmail on your laptop, you might also have a desktop machine, you have a phone, they're all connected to the same account. It might also happen that you might be at a friend's place or you're at school, at the library, you need to check an email, right? People log into their account, happens all the time. You can question how smart that might be depending on what you have in your account, of course, but these are things that happen, right? Decentralized identities have the ability to change that, where you can sign in and you have better ownership of data. But then what I run into is like, well, if I want to use in particular like a DoD ecosystem, it is not straightforward to do that in a secure manner. So even simply like, you set up a decentralized identity that you use to sign into a DEP, say that's a storage mechanism like Dropbox. You want to have that hooked up on your phone as well. You need to find a way to transfer your private wallet of your identities onto your phone. And that's not straightforward. And then also, since this is just like a Bitcoin wallet, right? If you lose your keys, you lose your Bitcoin. But here, if you lose your keys, you lose your identities, access to your apps. Also is a really bad thing. So also like, how do you manage that? And the problem that I run into is first, it was not easy for me to use multiple devices with the same identities. It wasn't easy for me to bring this along. So if I want to sign in somewhere else or something like that, and I know that's not a use case that everyone might have, but it's something I run into, and obviously other people will as well. And then also like, how do you securely manage those decentralized identities? So you have to create a backup of it. How do you store that? Like I still see people to this day that just have a text file on their desktop that just says, private key backup or something like that, right? I see Lewis raising his hand.
I'm guilty. I'm guilty.
Yeah, that's something you shouldn't do, and I also know people that have it on a USB stick, they put that in a drawer that they lock, but it's on a USB stick, it's there, and they just carry that around and they use that to sign in. So these are just all things that I ran into, and I was like, well, this should be easier. This is an issue for mass adoption, of course, and there's like related issues to that with like managing those keys, which we can get to. So really, there's like this led to a bunch of questions. So how can you safely use and carry those identities? How much information do you want to provide to adapt, and how can you control it easily? And I'm one of the people, and maybe there's some folks in the world that still disagree, but I think that you should never enter a seed phrase or a private key into a website or a device that's connected to the internet, which is something that you see with some of these wallets. If you want to restore them, they will ask you for your seed phrase, right? And you have to punch that in. With some platforms, it's even the case that every time you want to do a transaction, you have to paste in the key because it doesn't remember it. But that means that you need constant access to the key, and that leads to bad security practices, right? Again, the text file on your desktop, if you need your key multiple times a day just to do basic things, that's not great. And in particular with our ecosystem, how it works is that every application you sign into gets a what is called an app private key. And there's some issues that are worth exploring there as well, like what happens when those are compromised. We showed, I think like 2 years ago, that it is possible to compromise app private keys, even if the application was built with a good intent. So a developer might leave something out. This is particular to multi-user applications where you can embed some information and steal other people's app private key, which gives you access to all the data they have. So relating that back to a decentralized version of Dropbox, for instance, call it Stacksbox, I don't know. I could get your app private key and thus access to your files on your application, and there's no way for you to tell that actually happened. So those are of course big issues and require a lot of research to figure out how to do that. Yeah, I think we can continue here.
Perfect. And yeah, no, I definitely
anything to
resonate
add?
with it, man. No, I mean, I think that's proven, I think I'm super guilty about it, especially the fact that I save all my password in a notepad. Disclaimer, I have 450 passwords in a notepad because I control F it. So I was so I was like, when Marvin told me about Ryder, I was like, mate, we need to make this happen. So yeah, that was pretty much it.
All right, I'll continue on from here.
Go for it.
All right, so yeah, the solution, at least in our opinion, is a hardware device, and you can argue that there's different levels of solutions. So depending on how serious your DID is, so to speak, you try to find a golden mean, right? If we look at Bitcoin, for your day-to-day transactions, you might have a separate wallet, and you expect less of that wallet, you could say, than if you have a few million or billion that you're managing, right? So there's you can say some people are well served with a different kind of software wallet, and that's fine, or a wallet on the phone. But we think if we want to bring this to the masses and have this adoption and basically have that security baked in where you don't have to juggle your keys, there's a device that does that for you. So that's why we think a hardware device is the logical step here. So we have 3 key points here. So current technology makes it possible to create a hardware device that doesn't need any additional software, which is great because then you can use it anywhere where you are. That's something that we have slated for the future. So right now we have a prototype that still requires some software, but this is one of the key points. So the second point, of course, is that all crypto operations are performed by the hardware. So the key changes that's happening, signing transactions, those kinds of things, like all of that is going to happen inside the hardware. So just like a Trezor wallet or something, the private keys never leave the device, which is, of course, the third point. Continue to the next. Well, one too many. So yeah, this started last year. I think Lowe's and I got talking about this, and we were like, well, you know, we need this hardware device, and I told him, well, I'll just build one then, and if it doesn't exist, because I looked around, and we have hardware wallets that focus on coins and transactions and whatnot, but this particular use case, you know, it's a little different what we're doing. So very rudimentary. What you see right now is the very first prototype that was introduced, and you can see on the left basic hardware, what it looked like, two big buttons, confirm and reject, and on the right hand side you see a video which was the first, I think, ever using a hardware wallet to sign into a Stacks decentralized application, in this case Sigil, which is a decentralized version of Medium, if you will. So the way that this was done is to ensure compatibility. At the time, there was a piece of software called the Blockstack browser, and this could the device could hook into that. So any application that you use the Blockstack browser, you could use to sign in with this prototype. And then we moved on from there, and you might have already seen that this is the current state of the device. So it looks a little bit like an Apple Watch. I have one right here, which I think the battery's dead. But this was the next step, and we feel like to make this easy to use, we have some wireless communication mechanism like Bluetooth, so that when you click on an application you want to sign in. So on the right hand side you see a prototype of what that screen would look like. I click on Sigil that I want to sign in. It gives me a list of my identities. I click on one and then it pops up on the device. But of course, wired communication would be possible if this is something that we're still exploring.
Perfect. And that's pretty much it, guys. So thank you so much for that wonderful origin story, Marvin. So I just want to backtrack a bit. So for example, what Marvin did here was like a type 1 device that he actually envisioned for Ryder. And currently, if you look at our Genesis blog, which I can drop the link later, he mentioned that in order, so our final vision for Ryder is like a type 3 device where you can actually achieve all these three things. So currently we're like on, this is type 1 and this is a type 2, and we're actually on the type 3 phase now. And so, and we believe there's a lot of overcomplication in the crypto industry. So our goal, you know, with Ryder and then our community is just to bring crypto to the masses. And we should do a little bit of introduction. Who are the founding makers for Ryder? And of course you have Marvin. You probably all know Marvin. Kiki is also in the call. Kiki, would you love to do like a small introduction?
Hi everyone, I'm the newest member to Ryder. I'm a product designer. I'm from the UK, but I'm based in Amsterdam. And yeah, very excited to be joining such a cool project.
Perfect. And you have me, so I'll sound. Okay. And so after so we start Ryder, everything that we do is always community first, you know. So maybe Marvin, you can tell them a bit more about like our pioneers, you know. And I know most of them are actually in this call.
Right, I'll take over and we see if we can see some of them pop up. Yeah, so part of our V2 prototype, so the Apple Watch looking one, we produced 10 prototypes, which we've sent out to what we call the pioneers. So we selected some key members that we think would have a lot of impact in evaluating these and give us a lot of critical feedback. So on this slide, you see some of the pioneers that have received such a device and have been you know, playing around with it, trying it out. Very grateful. You see Jason sporting his Ryder. Fantastic picture. I hadn't even seen that yet, so that's fantastic.
Oh,
and on
that's funny.
And on the right hand side, that's what the prototypes look like, the ones that we shipped out, and you might have already seen those on the blog as well. So we're very grateful for the pioneers, and we're opening up our maker community more, so you can get introduced to them as well if you like.
Perfect. And I think so we're done with the origin story now, guys. So we could probably move on to the third agenda for the day, which is all about the engineering side of Ryder. Oh, sorry, I forgot. before that, we need to because we had this question from one of the community members. They're always asking, so what's the timeline for Ryder at the moment? So we have these deliverables for Q2 2021. So if you look at the far left side, those are the deliverables for engineering. And then if you look at the middle part, that's the deliverables for product, and you have the deliverables for the growth side of things. If you have any question, feel free to drop it in the chat box as always, and we can discuss it later. And now we can move on to the engineering part.
All right, so that's going to be me again. So covering those, if we go to the next slide, the engineering focus really for this quarter is going to be formalizing the Ryder protocol. So with Ryder protocol, I mean like the communication between the device and your platform, like your laptop, or in the future your phone or whatever device. So this is something that I worked on doing the prototype by myself. So I want to open it up. So that everyone can give their feedback and we can evaluate that. And then of course, the big thing is going to be integrating the Ryder into the web extension. So this is, say, the MetaMask of stacks. It currently has no hardware support, of course. So we're going to be figuring out how we can do that, how we can open up this platform so that it's not just Ryder, but future different hardware devices can also hook into the stacks extension. And we think this is, of course, very important. Once we have this integration done, just like with the Blockstack browser, we'll be able to use the Ryder with any existing dApp on stacks.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do today is we had some preliminary code bases that we've been working on. So we're going to open up 3 code bases today. So we have first the Ryder CLI Proto. This is a command line tool that you can use to manage your Ryder device. So you can use it to set up, you can use the export. So this is developer facing to test it out and to put your device into different modes. The second one is what I earlier called the replacement for the Blockstack browser. So this is the Ryder proxy prototype, a drop-in replacement for the browser, which is now deprecated, as you might know, but there's still lots of, I think, valuable information in there. So it would need some work to be really useful again, but this could be a setup, a preamble to the web wallet integration. And then finally, we have a package called Ryder Serial Proto, which is a more low-level but still straightforward to use library to integrate the Ryder into an application. So this is built in Node.js, so you can bring this in and you can use that to talk to the Ryder, and it will streamline that process. But of course, that's a little inconvenient because the actual prototypes are a little scarce right now. There's only about like 10 or 12 in existence. So, like what can you do with these libraries if you don't actually have a Ryder device to develop with? So what I want to introduce today, and I'm very excited about this, is the Ryder simulator. So this is a piece of software that runs the actual Ryder firmware and allows you to develop applications or interact with a Ryder, even though you might not have a device present. And even for the pioneers that do actually have a device right now, the simulator is still very useful because you can just bring it with you. You don't have to plug it in, and it behaves the exact same as the real device. So this is, it's not emulating it. It's an actual simulator. It runs the same firmware and it gets exposed in the same way. So very, very excited about this. I'm going to give you guys a super quick demo on that, just so you can see that this is a real thing. I'll share my screen. All right, can everyone see my screen right now?
Yes, Matt.
Wonderful. All right, so as you can see here, I have the Ryder V2 simulator, which I can execute. And the pioneers will have seen this before, but if this is new to you, this is the screen that you get introduced with when you first started up and the Ryder's not initialized. So it naturally gives you a warning that this is a prototype. You should not use your real seeds. Will become very clear a little bit later why that is. So the Ryder simulator will expose a connection. Again, for developers, this should be very straightforward. on how to talk to the Ryder. So on the right-hand side, I have my Ryder CLI prototype that I mentioned earlier. So this is a little program that allows you to send some commands to the Ryder. So you can erase a Ryder, you can export an identity or an app key or something like that. Firmware actions which wouldn't apply to the simulator, of course, and then we can also retrieve some information, or we can restore a device by sending an existing seed to it. So let's quickly try this out and see if we can initialize this simulator. So I'm going to say Ryder CLI proto. I have to pass in the Ryder port, which we can see right here is -- Ryder port /dev TTI S001. And I can send it the info command, and you can see that it reports that this is an uninitialized Ryder firmware version 002 on this port. So let's go ahead and send the setup command. And just like on the real device, it goes into setup mode, and it will say like you're now going to see a seed phrase, so be sure to write that down, and safe location is only going to be shown once. You click OK. It's still a rudimentary interface here, and it's going to show you seed phrase. And it's initialized. So you can see there's no confirmation. So be careful with that. But it's just a simulator, so it's very easy to reset it or to input a new seed if you want to. So now the Ryder simulator has been initialized, and you can use it for anything you would use a real Ryder for. So if I again send the info command, you can see it is now initialized, and we could have some fun and export an identity 0. You can see there's identity 0. Identity 1. Maybe I want to export an app key for identity 0 for the application, say sigil.io. And you can see this is the same frame that you've seen in the videos before. So you can confirm if you want to sign to Sigil or not, cancel, or I can actually sign in, and it will export the app key. So the Ryder simulator is just the exact same. Very excited to get this out there and have everyone try that out. The Ryder simulator also features persistence. So if I check the folder right now, you can see that it created a dump of its storage content. So this means that once I restart the simulator, it still has the same seed and the same settings. So this is great if you're trying something out or running tests and you need the exact same output every time. Actually, very easy to just delete and restart. And that's the simulator in a nutshell. Let's go back to the slides. All right, so the Ryder simulator is going to be available for download this week. It's going to be released on macOS Big Sur for both Apple M1. So those of you that have the new Apple MacBooks or the new iMacs that have just been announced, you'll be able to run them. Same for Intel. Windows 10 64 bits. So I have to give a shout out to Enzo, who is on this call right now, for really helping me out getting Ryder simulator to come alive on Windows. It's fantastic. And then, of course, like Linux 64 bits will be released as well.
Thank you so much for that wonderful engineering update. We have tons of questions in the chat box. We're going to discuss it later. But now I would love to move forward to the product development of Ryder. Take it away. Yeah, take it away.
So a disclaimer, I don't come from a crypto background. I'm solely a designer, but I think, yeah, could be a great thing, could be not so good. We'll see. I'll talk through maybe just how the design research approach, and I'll turn off my camera. This is not distracting. Okay, nice. So yeah, of course, there's currently very accelerated digital transformations happening, and these opportunities are creating they're creating a lot of innovation, but also division in the tech industry. This new wave of designers and developers and makers have accessibility and inclusivity as new tools. So innovation can emerge to elevate people's full potential through the tech. And this is kind of the space that Ryder exists in my eyes. A quote from Dieter Rams, who is one of the most influential industrial designers from the 70s, was a good design makes a product understandable. And this in particular, I think a lot of designers forget about, and especially it's quite important in a space like crypto, as it is uncharted territory for so many people. And we're at the beginning of this kind of crypto sphere becoming mainstream, which is obviously very exciting. And everything we need to create from this point has to be 100% understandable for everyone. So yeah, when we look at product design and technology and how kind of holistically they sit together, it's good to kind of see what's already been made, the good and the bad, and kind of specify the pain points, I guess, that might occur also for Ryder. So firstly, tech products are more often than not seen as cold and impersonable kind of to the average consumer. So this might be I think it's because generally tech for a long time has been seen as just this metal black and white entity that we shouldn't have in our home environment. So that's kind of something we want to change. Secondly, wearables in particular run the risk of not being inclusive. This meaning it's important to create something that goes beyond age, ethnicity, gender, sex, and disabilities, and that can empower a variety of individuals in a variety kind of contexts. And finally, and of course, it's maybe the most common, that a lot of tech products generally, and maybe even just maybe more so wearables, pose a security threat to personal privacy. So these are all things we really want to consider. So as I mentioned, it's always good to see what was already done and learn from these projects. And so I'm going to start off with a few examples of the bad. Shout out if you disagree. Firstly, the ISIS mobile wallet. It was released in 2012, and it was a mobile payment system like the original, like the Apple Pay. Unfortunately, it didn't just have a kind of a questionable name, but also required a SIM card to be used, a separate SIM card, and a credit card not all credit cards were supported in its system. So you had to buy a special prepaid credit card in order to put your money into the account. And the whole thing just wasn't very harmonious at all. So I think it got pulled a few years later. Then we have the Microsoft Band, which was Microsoft's first fitness tracker. This was released, I think, in 2014. And a lot of people mentioned how rigid it was, and also that it looked like a prison band. And I think that was also pulled 2 years later after release. And then finally, we have Neptune Pine, which was it was launched, I think, in 2013 by a Canadian company as a Kickstarter. And it actually did really well. It raised $800,000 in 30 days on Kickstarter, so it's super impressive. But basically, it had all these features, and it was a compass and a mic, speakers, headphones, satellite navigation, which of course in 2013 was super impressive. But it was really, really big, and it actually posed a health problem because a lot of people, because of the way it would hit their arms, or couldn't get their sleeves on, for example. So it wasn't the best design. Okay, so now moving on to the good. In all honesty, these are a little bit more recent as well. These are around 2015, 2016. So firstly, we have the charge trays by Layer Design Studio. This is kind of a nice case of how emerging technology can make the everyday easier and shouldn't always look highly technological and unapproachable. They are wireless charging trays that use induction charging technology and have been coated in slip cast ceramics. So yeah, they fit really nicely in the domestic environment, and you can, I don't know if you can see it, but on the top you can put the phone and of course, just charge it. Secondly, we have the Helm personal server, which is a home server to save people from being caught up in online breaches. It's that little triangle thing, So this device takes the internet services like email, for example, out of the cloud and stores this data in encrypted form within the device. And the shape is like visually supposed to look like a little roof. So you kind of house all your data and keep it safe. But the idea is that it doesn't look too menacing or aggressive, and it's just super straightforward to use. And then finally, there is the Dot smartwatch. This is a really good example of really inclusive design because it's the first smartwatch to use Braille for the visually impaired. And it relays the Braille in real time as it's connected to an app on your phone. So then when you get like navigation or text or a phone call, it starts to move, the dots and the Braille, which I think is a really nice design. Okay, so taking all of this into account, we started doing closer research on the aspects of human-centered design that would apply to Ryder. Another quote, I love a quote, is from Steve Jobs, that the broader one's knowledge on human experience is the better design we will have. So, it's key to like really understand how humans would actually interact with these as much as the technology would as well. And of course, another key part of the product research is looking how other similar products function and what we can do to elevate and improve based on their concepts. So kind of learning and thriving from that. I'm sure you all know what these are. So yeah, from all of this, we kind of can see the main pain points of the products and have this in mind when we're designing our Ryder. Next. So firstly, security is of the utmost importance. I know Marvin is also working very hard on digitally making it as secure as possible. So we're kind of looking at how to make it physically secure as well. Secondly, how can Ryder as a product feel approachable and human? I think, from other products that we currently have in the market, they sometimes do feel a bit cold and plain. So we're trying to make this really kind of integrated for the masses and make it easy to use. And finally, how can we make Ryder as accessible and inclusive to the masses, both in and out of the crypto sphere? So these are kind of our main, pain points, I guess, for design. And so what is next? So next we'll, if you guys, I don't know if you've seen, but that we have sent out a survey on Discord. So we'll collect all the data from the survey soon. And if you haven't done it, please do. Then we will begin the initial concept design. So start ideating, sketching, 3D modeling. And of course, we'll show you what we're up to the next time we have one of these meets. And also additionally, we're going to start the PCB integration and design because this will actually have an effect on how the design and the form looks. So we need to get that started immediately. And on to growth.
Hello, guys. I think I'm running me right. Okay, it's Lewis. The QX is asking. Yeah, you can pronounce it as Lewis. Okay, guys. So for growth step is I tried to answer some of the questions that you guys sent through the survey, but as always, for Ryder, it's always community first model. So you guys, we treat you as a team extension. So for the pioneers are there to help for engineering, product development, and also if you're interested in growth, building communities, you can also help Ryder. And then the other one is we try to expand the contribution. So contributors of idea and supporters of human capital. That's why we have the community first model. And we try to establish a community feedback loop because by the end of the day, your opinion matters, especially in the development of Ryder. Imagine it as a democratic instrument for Ryder instruction and popularization of the product. And I think, as always, community lays the foundation for like self-supporting ecosystem, especially in crypto. They say community is gold. So another question that we have mostly from the survey is, are you guys doing a token? So we look at it. So there's quite a few advantages of making our own token. So for example, if Ryder makes our own token, it will be like fully decentralized, and then it will be a true community-led hardware device project. Because if you look at traditional corporations, there's always a lack of innovation, and we can say that their growth is focused to satisfy their stakeholders rather than their core users. But what if you can change the narrative by making your stakeholders or users contributors? And I think that's the beauty of crypto, you know what I mean? So there's like few projects in this space that we look at. For example, Radical has like a good governance kind of mechanism. Also like Badger, for example, Badger, 90% of their token goes to the community. Yeah, and then for community governance, I would love to move on to the third bullet point. Just imagine a scenario where you makers can actually vote on what Ryder 2 will look like. You as a user can support the long-term sustainability of the project by, you can decide on distributing the treasury of Ryder via maybe program initiatives or maker programs. You know, it could be like developer bounties or whatever we can think of. And crypto, you know, tokens are always a catalyst for growth. Yeah, and then so if we do a token, there's tons of things that we need to consider. For example, how do we allocate it? What's the issuance method? It could be a token governance token. It could be a token backed by a physical asset. One good example is like Unisocks. We can also do like POX Live. For example, if you actually stack your SDX, you get Ryder tokens. And there's a bunch of things that we could actually try as a community. So yeah, this is the answer for those who actually ask if we're gonna do a token. So everything's kind of up in the air. There's no like final, you know, confirmation that we're gonna do it. But yeah, just to answer some of the questions that you guys have. And then in terms of growth for like the past few months, so I'm always a believer of growth is a gradual, steady process. You know, you don't just like whip your heads and then in a few days you have like thousands of like dedicated community members, especially with building communities. I think steady growth is always important. So as you can see, in January, there were like 41 dedicated people. And then it just grew to like 250 in April. And right now we have more than 80 dedicated community members in Discord. Okay, so what's next for the makers that's in the call? Because another question that we got is, you know, if they want to get involved more closely with the development, what can they do? I think I'll give Marvin the time to unveil it. Go for it, mate.
So, you know, like it's always great, and like we're rolling out all these code bases, so you know developers can get involved and start, you know, committing to those repositories. There's very like a lot of growth opportunities to help with like sharing or helping with the writing of blog posts. You know, that's stuff that has been done. We've had lots of help with our decks and whatnot. And now with Kiki, there will be lots of help. You know, you could assist with the product development cycle and give feedback on what she's working on. You know, and that's all great. Like we all believe in open source. And if it wasn't clear before, so our ultimate goal of this is to be completely open source with everything. So all the repositories that we have, the firmware is going to be open source. We want to open source the hardware design, the PCB design, like everything is going to be open source. So we highlighted one of the different hardware wallets earlier. So there is a new type of Bitcoin hardware wallet called the Passport by Foundation Devices. I invite you to check that out as well. And they made very careful considerations in their design. So you know, it's a different market, but we really respect what they're doing. And I think they're the first that really open sourced everything. So there are no you know, blobs in the device where we don't know what's in there. Like every piece of firmware is completely open. The BCB is designed completely open. So you could take all of it and you could produce your own if you wanted to, if you happen to have a factory, you know, whatnot. But you could. So that's our ultimate goal. We really want to get this done, and we'll do that in phases. We'll roll this out, and we love for people to contribute. But you know, of course, like contributing is great, and we're very thankful that we have so many passionate people that have been working with our code bases together already, and filling in our surveys and whatnot. But we want to go one step beyond that. So we want to introduce one more thing, and that's We go to the next slide. What we want to launch next week is the Ryder bounty program. So we'll figure this out together. So we're going to come out with particular things that need tackling. So, you know, we talked about the web extension before. So this will be expressed in specific features and work that has to be done on the engineering side. And of course, in product and growth, we'll have similar aspects. So what the bounty program is going to be, we'll come up with what needs to be done, and we'll attach some values to that. So when you participate in these bounties, you'll be able to earn some stacks for moving the platform forward. So we'll launch that next week, and there'll be lots of bounties available that people can participate in, and we'll try to figure out together like how to best handle this and move this forward. But very excited about that as well. So that we can send out our thanks, our gratitude in the form of some SDX.
And it's pretty much it for today, guys. So we have 15 minutes left to be exact, and we can leave it for Q&A. So if you have any question, now is the time to do so. But before that, I think I'm going to backtrack some of the questions in the chat box. There's quite a lot.
Yeah, if you have any questions, just drop them in the chat and we'll go through it. And if anyone wants to chime in at any point, please do.
Yeah, now's the time, guys. It's an open discussion.
Let's see, where's the first question here?
So Rosanna, from Rosanna, I think is the first question. I think so. Yeah. So could you use LoRaWAN wireless protocol Helm network instead of Bluetooth?
I saw that somewhere just now. Oh, right there. Yeah, there's all sorts of interesting possibilities. So I think LoRa is really cool technology. I've worked with it a little bit before. Bluetooth was just the natural choice because you have a lot of devices that already just support it. But this is not set in stone. So if you have experience with this, or you have particular reasons why we should go with one thing over the other, we'd be very, very interested to explore this. Of course, you know, one thing that you'd have to keep in mind, like by adding a radio, a Bluetooth radio to the device, or a different wireless radio, you open up a possible attack vector. So this is something that we got to explore, obviously. But we can take a look at the Ledger Nano X, which also has Bluetooth, and see how they deal with that and how that works. But yeah, definitely open to that. So please reach out if you know more about this. Okay.
Thanks, mate. Okay, the next question is from Jude. Is there an ETA for when the firmware will be open source? I think we answered, we already discussed this, right?
Yeah, but I'll mention it again. So we want to direct with first making Ryder useful and focusing on the Connect integration. And then while we go through that, you know, we'll have that laser sharp focus to get that done. And I will work on the firmware to get that up to speed if there's anything missing. And then I think in the next quarter is when we'll roll out more of those repositories and make them open.
Okay, next question is from QX. GNU/Linux 64-bit, can that run on ARM? Example given is Raspberry Pi 4.
Good question. So that relates to the Ryder simulator. I can try that out. Should definitely be possible. So I use an M1 mostly. So we should see if we can find. I have Raspberry Pis too. Yes, gonna try it out. Should be possible.
And the next question is from Felix. NFC is more secure, correct?
Possibly, but you know, it depends on usability. So if you want to sign into a decentralized app on your laptop, most laptops don't have NFC technology on board. So you know, it would be cool that if you wear the watch, you can kind of just tap it on your device and you can sign in. So I think NFC makes a lot of sense. So also something worth exploring.
Okay, I think that was all the questions that we have from the chat box. Now, guys, now's the time. If you have any questions for like engineering, product, or growth, just feel free to chime in. We still have 12 minutes left. You know, there was a lot of questions from. Okay, Juliet Oberding. Do you anticipate concerns with Connect integration?
What happened here? Trying to reopen my chat. Concerns with Connect integration. Well, I think a lot of work has already been done. So the way the bridge works, and if we look, for instance, at Trezor used to have a bridge as well that you'd install, and that wouldn't like have like a local service you could connect to. So I foresee it being possible to do something very similar. So I think the bulk of the work is going to be the fact that Connect does not expect its keys or identities coming from somewhere else. So that would be the biggest thing to work on. But I don't think there's nothing of grave concern, at least not right now. But we will see. There are some other people who have more experience with working with Connect, like Friedker, and Friedker might be able to chime in on that more.
Okay, any more questions, guys? And now's the time. Just feel free to chime in. Yeah.
I like that statement, like a product idea, a pluggable NFC, like a little pad that you can plug in on through USB. I think that's a pretty cool idea as well, and something that crossed my mind. So we should definitely write that one down.
Yeah, definitely. I'm putting it on our idea box QX, and then I'm gonna remember it came from you. Okay, Felix has another question, but Felix, we always appreciate more questions as always. Are you considering biometric security to the device?
I think like my team members might also be able to answer that one. But the initial one, so what you saw in the Ryder simulator is that you can just set it up and you can just start exporting, and the only confirmation you do as a user is you just press yes or no. So that's not very safe, obviously. You know, and if we look at how Trezor and Ledger do this, you enter a PIN, and every time you get it wrong, you have to wait a little bit longer, and that's kind of how you lock the device. So the first step was to introduce something like that. Since we have a touch device, we could also come up with alternatives, you know, like draw a shape like you have on Android, and there's a few other input methods. Biometric security is something we also thought about, but I personally find that very tricky because these are things that can be faked. If you look at, you know, what happened with Apple Face ID, if you have a twin sister, you know, you can kind of make that happen and unlock it. And also with, say, a fingerprint scanner, there are ways to get around that, right? So if you'd snatch this off of someone, there's a way to extract the fingerprint. And of course, this is involved, but, you know, these are possibilities because this stuff exists in the real space. Whereas a pin would only exist in your mind, at least hopefully. But open to that discussion as well, and open to be proven wrong.
Okay. Any more questions, guys? I'm familiar with cold card.
I don't know, Lewis, are you? Like, I know they exist, but I don't have one and I haven't used one. And I know they're also like really like onto security. So it's a device that I would use to manage a lot of coins all at once.
Yeah, I'm gonna add it in like a market research. Thanks for the suggestion, QX.
All right, anything else? Or does anyone want to go on a call? And
yeah, jump in. Now's the time, guys. Don't be shy. If not, we can always end early. And if you have any questions, don't forget to join our Discord. So I'm gonna drop all the links. Okay, I'll drop it now before we end the call, because, you know, we can never have too many makers.
hope you're all going to grab the simulator and tear it apart and see what happens there.
Yeah, so I was just wondering, are the bounties going to be like advertised in the Discord channels regularly, or how is it planning to work?
We want to put everything in like a central location. So we'll have a page where they're all listed. We're playing with the idea that you can kind of like signal that you're working on one of them. And then we'll just use like, you know, a community mechanism. Like if you're working this together, then you can divide it up together. But there would be a central place, and then we can also list the ones that have been completed and how and where if we want to link to that. Right, Lois?
Yeah, definitely. So just like one repository, probably in Notion, and then we just want visibility because, you know, you don't want to duplicate efforts by the end of the day. So if you can work with other makers within the community, that will be pretty great. So, you know, and yeah, we're pretty excited about it as well. Yeah, looking forward to having more contributors. Because by the end of the day, Ryder is a community-led project. So.
Cool, very excited.
Thank you for the question, Simone. Anybody else would love to ask any questions? We have 6 minutes left. I think what's pretty interesting. So once Ryder is like fully implemented, it's just nice to sign in with like a decentralized identity, you know, with like no over complications, and you log into a DEX, for example, or like Arcadico, or even view your NFTs. I think that's the day that I'm looking forward, you know, as a part of the community.
Yeah, we're focusing on signing in. So this is like decentralized identity first, but obviously to get a full integration with Connect and the ecosystem in general, we will have transaction signing and contract interactions, and we're playing around with all sorts of interesting ideas. So you know, the way smart contracts work on stacks would be a lot of fun if you could deploy a contract ad hoc, or even if you meet someone face to face. So also thinking about like social interactivity and how would something like this our crypto future redefine our society and our relationships with each other, right? Like, so these are things we're exploring. Social recovery is a big issue that we're talking about. So we'd love for you to chime in on that discussion too.
Okay, QX raises hand. I think he has a question.
Yeah, I'll try to make it quick. What is the atomic unique identifier that like sits, you know, as the root of the identifier, or does the Ryder protocol kind of leave that to the user? And what I mean by that is like, is it a private key pair? Is it a public private key pair, or, you know, or some kind of unique identifier that's not going to collide with anyone else?
Right. So right now, the DID mechanism is specific to the Stacks ecosystem, and the way they do that is very similar to a deterministic wallet you might be used to with a different cryptocurrency. So there is a master phrase, a master seed, if you will, and through a particular algorithm, it derives different identities from that, and from those identities, it will then derive app keys, and that's deterministic. So if you recollect my demo of the simulator, you pass in an identity number, and this, you know, gives you like the next key in line. So that's how it works for Stacks. And this we didn't specifically mention this during the presentation, but of course, like we want to extend to different DID standards as well, and maybe explore if this could lead to a standard of some sort as well. So we know that the European Union is experimenting with DIDs, and they came up with a bunch of standards. So we want to explore all of those as well. But to answer your question, yes, for in particular Stacks, very similar to a deterministic wallet.
Okay, we have 3 more minutes, guys. We're saying the call till the end of the, but like for those who wants to leave, go for it. But then if anybody wants to still chit chat with the team, we're here. Our pioneers are also here, you know. And yeah, thank you so much for attending our builders meetup that focuses on DIDs on Stacks, featuring Ryder.
Hope to see you in the Discord, and hope to see you at the next one too.
True.
I think that's it. We've exhausted all the questions.
Okay, I love this phrase, DID on Stacks. Thank you so much, QX. Okay, guys, we're signing out. Thank you so much for attending, and we'll see you very soon. Oh, he has a question. QX, go for it. Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to let everyone know that this is a good time to save the chat if you want to save the chat. In the prior meetup, Lewis, the meeting ended so fast, I never got a chance to save the chat.
Yeah, no, I have it. So yeah, so I have all. I'm gonna circle out the details afterwards because I have the recording, and then I can also send the chat to everybody for those who attended the call.
Yeah, I guess it's good to always have a moment to be like, okay, time to click save on there.
Yeah,
it's a good point. All right.
Okay.
Thanks all.
Thanks a lot.
See you soon.
Ciao.
Appreciate all the questions. Lots of quality feedback.